Hello, and welcome to Primary Immunodeficiency Questions and Answers. This podcast is a service of the Immune Deficiency Foundation, a nonprofit organization that improves the diagnosis, treatment, and quality of life of people affected by primary immunodeficiency. In this episode, we will be focusing on teens living with PI as we discuss important issues such as managing your health while juggling school and friends, all while working towards being independent. And now, let's begin.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode, Being Independent, part of IDF's teen podcast series. I'm your host, John Boyle. Figuring out your journey through life can always be tough, especially as you grow older and more independent. While your parents probably make most of your decisions for you in the early years, you'll start to make more choices on your own as a teen, such as when you do your homework, what you'll wear to school, what activities you want to be a part of. One of the best parts of being a teenager is having a little more freedom and being able to make some of your own decisions. However, when you're living with a primary immunodeficiency, you'll also have to start handling more responsibility and start managing your health alongside of your parents. In this episode, we're going to discuss a little bit about how to manage our health while learning how to be more responsible for our life choices, ultimately being a little more independent. Helping us to explore these topics, we have Keegan Hartman with us. Keegan was diagnosed with X-linked agammaglobulinemia, or XLA, at birth. On his mother's side of the family, Keegan's uncles and great-uncles also have XLA, along with a growth hormone deficiency. According to the National Institutes of Health, or NIH, Keegan, along with his uncles, were known to be the only 5 individuals in the world with this rare combination. Keegan has been a member of IDF and has been attending IDF events since he was 7 years old. He's also a former IDF Teen Council member, having just aged out of the council this last year. Keegan's entering his junior year at the University of Missouri of Columbia, where he's majoring in strategic communications with the intent to minor in sports journalism. On campus, Keegan is a part of the University of Missouri's student media organization, where he's involved with the on-campus radio station along with a sports talk radio show called Breakfast of Champions. Keegan, welcome. Thank you so very much for joining us here today.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Glad I could join you.
Well, Keegan, first, I'd like to say thanks for joining us during these strange times. I hope that you're doing well and staying safe. But can you tell us a little bit about what life has been like for you during the pandemic and maybe, I assume, coping with a little bit less interaction with other people than usual?
You know, with the changing times, the trying times, everything that's been going on, I've pretty much been abiding by the same rules that everybody else should be abiding by. School let out in March up at the University of Missouri in Columbia, so I was back home late March, and I've pretty much been for probably 80% of my summer. I've been staying in my house. If I go out in public, I'm wearing a face mask. I'm maintaining social distancing. New face mask ordinance just got placed here in Joplin, Missouri, my hometown, and that goes until August 17th. So I've been definitely way more precautious than a lot of my friends because not a lot of people are on the same page with it. So I've just I've taken every single precaution when it comes to going out, maybe hanging with a couple friends. I've hung out with a couple of my friends, but nothing too big. So yeah, I'm just taking it easy with everything that's going on right now.
Well, that sounds about as healthy and wise as one could and should. But I mean, this is a real transition. It's a real change from the norm. Can you talk a little bit about what it's like? Because you've gone through a lot of these sort of transition times, going from middle school to high school to college, and now that you're in this time of your life, you're having to go through the times as they are being, kind of provided to you while still maintaining your independence. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you think about maintaining independence, in general, as someone who has a health condition and is trying to navigate their way through such strange and interesting times.
Hmm. I think independence is tough because I really try to seek advice from my parents a lot. I mean, I'm 20 years old. I'm still trying to figure things out, but I go to them a lot of the times for advice. I know that they said to really, I guess, quote unquote, marinate with your what you're going to be doing, what your plans are. Really think about what you want to do. If you want to go back to college, if you want to stay here, we understand. And so I made the decision to sign a lease back in April, and I got my new apartment. So that tells you what I'm doing. But going back up there, I think is it's going to be a little difficult because you've got 30,000 kids plus at the University of Missouri, and you're trying to cram you know all those kids wandering in and about campus. I'm not going to be on campus. I'm going to be doing my classes online. And I have to give a shout out to the Disability Center for the University of Missouri because they've been so cooperative and understanding. And I guess a piece of advice I'd give to anybody listening is if if and when you get into college, take advantage of the Disability Center on campus because they've helped me through these trying times. I mean, you never know if we're going to have one of these again, but even regardless, we do have a compromised immune system. So definitely seek their advice and their counseling and guidance because they've been crucial to my college career. Um, but yeah, I think I'm going to give it a go because I had this intention. I set this goal for myself to be able to go up there. I wanted to get out of my comfort zone originally, and I know, I guess, with the respects of COVID-19 right now, I still want to be able to attack my goals and I still want to be able to succeed. And if that means I got to go up there and be close to campus and have that resource, right next to me, closer than what I am, which is 4 hours, then so be it. So I'm not, I've been utilizing my resources, but I just feel like I have to go back up there. I have goals. I'm sorry. I don't know how to close that off. I got to go back up there. That's the goal. That's the plan.
No, Keegan, I think that that's great. I mean, this time is a strange time. It's an aberration. Eventually, we will get back to whatever becomes the new normal. And in our world, the new normal is reset somewhat regularly, I think. But to have those goals and to say, hey, this is where I want to get to makes all the sense in the world. And again, no one has a crystal ball because this is all so new. But one thing is, pandemic aside, there's a lot of things that you have gone through which are going to be pretty similar to what a lot of other people who are younger than you. Again, you're 20 years old. You've gone through a few of these things, but there's some, I think, potentially lessons learned from things that you have experienced that other people might be as time goes on. So, in pivoting to some of those topics, as we all hope for vaccines and a return to whatever our new normal is, um, in your experience, when it comes, time for people to set their own goals, teens to set their own goals in terms of being active, doing something, signing up for a sport, an after-school activity, a part-time job, when they have a primary immunodeficiency, as you have, what advice would you give to someone who is looking to to start something new and to say, hey, this is my goal, I want to go and get it, but I'll probably have to balance this, and I've never done that before. You've done some new things in your time. How have you approached that, and what might you say to a teenager who all of a sudden is saying, hey, I want to go for one of these new things?
I think the first step, to trying new things and pursuing things that you want to do is you have to be very transparent and upfront with your coaches, your mentors, your teachers, your professors, whatever the case may be. I know that when I was in football, I mean, I played my freshman and sophomore year of high school, and then I found other avenues. But for the time that I was there, I mean, I my coaches were understanding, and I would tell them, "Hey, I'm not feeling well. I'm not doing this." Now there would be some cases where, I might play, and I do not recommend this. There might be some days I was dreading practice and I just didn't want to go, so I'd send an email to my coach and be like, "Hey, I'm not feeling good. Don't do that. Please do not do that. You will pay. You will you will do some running." Yeah, that's a no-no. But I would say, tell them what you're going through. Tell them what you have, and they will be understanding. They will make accommodations for you. I say this again, and I can't emphasize it enough. The disability center up there has they set down the law for all my professors, all the groups, all the extracurricular groups I'm a part of. You mentioned I was a part of the Mizzou Student Media Organization, and I mean, they've worked hand in hand to make accommodations for me to make sure that I stay healthy, and I'm able to live a normal life. So I mean, just seeking advice of those people and asking them to help you will help you get closer, to being a part of those organizations. That'd be the biggest key for me, is just making sure that you tell the person that's ahead of the organization, or the coach, like I said, just tell them up front what you have and everything, and being super transparent, and they will help. They will help.
Well, Keegan, I think that that's great advice. But those are, coaches and teachers and some of the other infrastructure of the school, or frankly adults. When it comes to that sort of transparency, especially if you think about, starting high school and then going through your high school years, you're making new friends. These people do not necessarily have the same maturity, and we're not talking about the same sort of obligations that they have. How do you, you know, how do you describe your condition to potential new friends? Do you maintain that same level of transparency? And how would you say that over the years, especially your teenage years, that went?
Um, well, I guess I'll go from now until back then. So in the time I've been up in college, when I've made new friends, because I got to think it's a lot more people than it was in high school. Probably about, I couldn't even tell you, I'm not good at math, like 9 times the amount of people in my high school. So I would say, whenever I've got friends over, my roommates have friends over, and we're all in the living room. Normally, it's on a Sunday. That's when I do my treatments. So I could be in the living room, just getting my treatment prepared, and somebody asks the question, "Hey, what's that?" And then, I just kind of give them a look, and I give them a sermon, basically. I tell them basically, "Hey, I was diagnosed with primary immunodeficiency." I don't get too technical because nobody can say X-linked agammaglobulinemia. So I just tell them, I was diagnosed with this at a very young age. I've got a compromised immune system, so my immune system doesn't function properly like yours does. I don't have as many white blood cells as you do, so I can't combat sickness like you can. So to compromise for that, I take these infusions, and people have different methods of taking their medicine. So basically, presenting what your medicine is about is how I break it down to them, and I just tell them I need this to live. Now, if I go back to high school, yeah, I have a small circle of friends. I didn't have too many friends, and when I did tell my friends, I mean, I was a part of football, so the coaches, I kind of presented that in a way where everybody knew. I kind of told everybody, yeah, if you didn't know this already, because all the people that I went to school with, we had been going to school since elementary, so they kind of had an idea. But as you mature, as you grow older, you're able to get more of an understanding, and so I kind of got in depth with, hey, this is what I have. So this is what I go through. I have a compromised immune system, and everybody was pretty open about it. All the new friends that I made, and And the more I got involved with the Immune Deficiency Foundation, that really helped because, I kind of gained a little bit of a family there, and that kind of it was kind of reassuring with them because that kind of boosted my confidence a little bit. Once I gained a little bit of a family within the Immune Deficiency Foundation, I started to talk about that more, and I kind of used the Immune Deficiency Foundation as like a, I guess, a medium, if you will, sort of like to tell everybody about, and kind of lead them to that, and show them what I'm involved in. So once I got to high school, I kind of led them to that once I kind of explained everything. Um, so yeah.
Oh, no, Keegan, I think you answered it actually beautifully. But I'd like to actually go a little bit even deeper on this in terms of talking about this sort of transparency that you first mentioned, and talking a little bit about how, at some level, your experiences with IDF and meeting other teens and everything else may have helped you along the way. Um, this sort of transparency, this comfort that you have in talking with your friends, your classmates, who you did grow up with going to this school, um, but still you could have kept it secret. You could have taken somewhat of a different path. Can you tell me a little bit about how your family and your care team, what their reactions to transparency has been? Was that something that was encouraged from the get go, or is that something that has kind of more gradually been a part of this? Were you all on the same page, or is this sort of transparency something that was pushed on you or that you pushed? Anything along those lines, because different families and different experiences are going to be coming at this somewhat differently, and knowing a little bit of that background, I think, could be of interest.
Well, there's a few highlights from my lifetime where it kind of just it went hand in hand. So in first grade and second grade, I'll answer this to the best of my ability. So in first and second grade, I I got staph infection, and I was out for a good duration of the school year for first and second grade. I would go to after school classes. My teachers were super lenient and understanding. My parents, of course, had talked to them because I was only 7 at the time. So I would go to these after school classes, after once I was released from the hospital, in which I spent probably 2 weeks, both my first and so like two separate occurrences. I'd spent a good deal in the hospital from staph infection, and my teachers were super understanding of the circumstances I was going through, and everybody kind of noticed that I was absent from class, and I got sent, the super kind, get well soon cards. Basically my teachers told them I was sick, and so they sent me get well soon cards. They called me from the hospital, so super understanding. And then when I got to third grade, I think the Immune Deficiency Foundation had actually introduced or at least we had participated in a fundraiser. We were selling the IDF bracelets, and I had put together this presentation in third grade, and I presented it to all my classmates, and I actually I made a killing. I did a good job. We raised a lot of money that year. We had a fundraiser golf tournament. My dad and a bunch of his buddies came together. We kind of spread the word, and we did a lot of good charity work with the Immune Deficiency Foundation. I think that was how I got out of my comfort zone. Really, there really wasn't a comfort zone. I mean, I've been so used to it for so long, is what I'm trying to say, John. I mean, it's been a part of me my whole life. And, my parents kind of instilled in me, you got to be upfront, you got to be transparent with who you're talking to. I think, to answer your question, transparency was instilled in me by my parents, and being upfront with my classmates and teachers. Hey, if they notice that I'm missing so much time from school, I don't go in too depth. I'll be very broad with them, be like, I was sick. And then, if you're sick from what you're from, I mean, at this age, you should be able to kind of give them a gist of what you're going through, or, what you've, at least what you can be broad about it, is what I'm trying to say. But like, if the question arises, being upfront with them, being transparent with them, maybe even the most simplest terms can go a long way. I mean, like that is it's a small stepping stone, but it's a stepping stone, and gaining comfort to be able to talk about it. And so sometimes these people that confront you, that's the best method to being able to talk about what you're going through. I think that once you're able to attack that, it really, it's not hard. It's just having a conversation. And I say that, and I'm kind of struggling to answer these questions, but I mean, like, it's as simple as that. I feel like, but that's just me, in my opinion.
Well, Keegan, uh, that's just you is all that we want. And seriously, really appreciate the fact that, um, as I probe here and as we kind of talk a little bit deeper about these things, that you're so willing to talk about these experiences from the past and those times in the hospital. I do know that they can stay with you, and so I appreciate your being so open and chewing on these things because. They're not cut and dry. They're not black and white. And reminiscing about your journey here is really, I think, incredibly valuable for those who are listening. But knowing that I've been throwing some curveballs at you here for a little bit, I think it'd be a great time to take a break. So let's do that, and then we'll talk some more in just a moment.
No matter where you are along your journey, IDF wants to help you manage living with primary immunodeficiency, or PI. As a community-empowered organization, IDF can provide you with support, education, and resources to help you cope with a wide variety of issues related to PI, including physical and mental health, insurance, and relationships. For more information, please visit www.primaryimmune.org.
All right, welcome back. My guest, Keegan Hartman, is exploring the challenges of becoming independent as a young person while juggling school, friendships, and activities. So I'd like to switch gears a little bit here and talk about managing your health. One of the many transitions of becoming independent, is gaining more responsibility. Now, as someone with a chronic condition, your responsibilities can include maybe making your own doctor's appointments, getting involved in helping to refill your prescriptions. What are some of the things that you have had to do in terms of responsibility with your health, maybe back in the high school days, in your transition to colleges? What are some of the things that you have had to deal with those sorts of transitions, and maybe any best practices that you found when dealing with that transition of taking on more responsibility in that arena?
Um, I think that, let's see, what were some of the first things that my parents had me do? Okay, so calling in for prescriptions, calling in for my medicine. That was one of the first smaller steps that in high school my parents kind of, maybe around maybe the age of 16 or 17, I want to say, they were like, okay, look, we're getting tired of, they didn't say we're getting tired of doing the phone calls, but they're like, look, you're 16 now, you can talk, and you can tell them, what you need, what your prescription entails. And so basically we would call our distributor or whatever, and I would just be like, yes, I need this order, I need this much medicine. I would tell them my dosage, which is 12 grams. And, I would tell them any supplies that, may need to go with that order. I think that's one of the first steps. That's one of the more comfortable. I feel like it'd be one of the more easiest steps to accomplish, because really it's just a phone call, and it shouldn't take any more than 5 to 10 minutes to be able to hash out and get it sent your way. That's one of the main steps. And then being on time, this is another small step, really. They go hand in hand. Being on time, don't procrastinate with your treatments and stuff, making sure you're doing it when you need to do it. This sounds super hypocritical, guys, and so I'm just going to say this. when I got to college, it was difficult for me to be able to be consistent because I was transitioning into the college atmosphere. And so there was a lot of distractions. There was a lot of other things that my mind was set on, and really I was like I wasn't really honed in on doing my treatment consistently. And then there was a good time frame where I caught a little bit of a cold, and I was like, yeah, I got to change this. So for the most part, I might be off by a day, but I guess my advice to anybody is get a calendar, get a planner, be consistent with your days, because if it throws you off, if you go X amount of days without doing a treatment, you have your week time frame. But if you go over that, if you exceed that, that's a problem. You have to be able to be consistent with giving your infusions, and giving them by yourself. I mean, you got to get comfortable. I know a lot of my friends at later ages within the Immune Deficiency Foundation, at later ages, they weren't able to do their infusions because they just weren't comfortable. And I mean, I kind of stepped out of that scene of having my parents help me at the age of 14. So I was fortunate enough to kind of be pushed into that position in high school, and learn how to administer my own infusions, and and be ready and be prepared for college. That's the biggest key there. So high school is really for immune deficiency patients. It's getting things figured out, and so definitely take advantage of when your parents are on the phone, and they're calling up your doctor, they're calling up your distributor. Be like, hey, let me talk to them. Let me place the order for the medicine. Or when if you're still getting help from your parents doing your infusions and whatnot, that's fine. But there's got to come a time where you want to be able to transition out of that, because at some point you are going to be faced with independence, and so you want to be able to transition well. And so I think those are two, I guess, my two key advices, uh, in high school at least. I don't know if you want me to answer college. That I'm still trying to figure some things out, believe it or not.
Oh, Keegan, I would love it, and I would also just kind of mention here, because again, there are two primary modalities for doing immunoglobulin. One is intravenous, to which you have a trained professional coming in once every 3 or 4 weeks, administering it to you. For which, again, you don't have to be as hands-on and responsible. But what you're talking about is subcutaneous immunoglobulin, and so from that experience that you were talking about in high school to then transitioning to college, and I know something as well about how off you can get with such things. Yeah, would love to hear a little bit more, knowing that again you will get it figured out eventually. You will get into that rhythm, about how you have handled doing this without, frankly, a safety net of your parents. When you were in your parents' home, and in high school, it was a little bit different. But now that you are on your own, you really are having to figure out how to apply this the way that you want to, and that comes with some challenges. So yeah, we'd love to hear a little bit more about the the college challenges of doing subcutaneous on your own.
I mean, yeah, there are definitely physical challenges, but I mean, from this kind of goes back to the independence as a whole. Something that I'm going to face. It's a personal goal for me going into this year, getting familiar with insurance, getting familiar with the financial aspect, because I've got 2 more years of college left, and then after that I'm on my own. So I don't have college. I won't be going back to my parents' house. I'll be graduating on to something else. And that scares me to even think about it. But I think this year, aside from doing my treatments, of which I've done a really good job. I think one thing about taking your medicine, not only just taking your treatments and whatnot and being consistent with when you take your treatments, but also, I mean, we're immune deficiency patients. I don't know about anybody listening, but for me, I have a lot more things to take than just my treatments. So I mean, eye drops. My eyes are always, filled with. It's almost as if the oh, what do they call it? Sand fairy, whatever that comes, he leaves the whole desert in my eyes when I wake up, is what I'm trying to say. It's bad. So I take eye drops. Being consistent with taking your medication, that's one goal. I set for myself going into this year, is making sure that I'm not only just accomplishing my infusions, but I'm also taking other medicine as well, and I'm doing that on time, and I'm doing it when I need to and when necessary to be able to help me, in all aspects of my life, whatever I have going on. But I would say the main goal for this year is dealing with insurance, understanding the talk behind it. I really I don't have much of a knowledge for the whole insurance side of things, and that scares me. I want to be able to find a way, find a job is going to be a big priority, one that is able to pay for that, and there's just so many concerns, so many questions. So that's one goal for myself personally. That was the biggest thing, is just trying to find insurance or trying to answer questions about insurance. So yeah.
Well, Keegan, I think you're in so many ways keeping a couple of steps ahead of where you need to be, because those insurance issues, especially once you get out of college, are going to be very daunting and challenging. And boy, they change each and every year. So the fact that you are you moved on from kind of the 101 level of trying to make sure that you're independent and in control to the degree that you want to be, in terms of your general health, physical health, your medications, and all that, and then on to that level of insurance is absolutely phenomenal. Which is, I'm not going to say even a 201 level. That's a 501 level class as far as I'm concerned. But you've talked about how you've taken these steps with, again, your making sure that your medications, your therapies, all those other pieces are in line, and that you're doing what you need to there, and that you're trying to, of course, deal with some of these other issues that are coming up, like insurance. But one thing that permeates all of us, who are dealing with a chronic illness, even in the best of times, and of course, right now we are not necessarily in the best of times, it is challenging times. We're all dealing with stress. And you have the normal stress of the day to day, being in school, being in college, being a teenager, being a young adult, relationships with family, or relationships with friends. But you also have the added stresses and complications of having, a chronic illness, and frankly, a couple of different pieces to deal with there. Can you tell us a little bit about how you cope with stress, the coping mechanisms that you've used, how you manage stress, on the day to day now, maybe what you've learned over the last few years, as of course your situation changed?
Well, I think there's a lot of ways for me to alleviate stress or anything that I'm going through. I mean, first and foremost, I'm seeking family and friends, and I'm asking them how they cope with certain things, things that I'm relating to, and I seek their advice. And I got to give props to the Immune Deficiency Foundation. Surround yourself with the individuals that know you best, because when you get involved with a family like IDF, you kind of you gain relationships within, and it's not just with people your age, it's people all across all walks of life. I mean, people that are established, people that have kids. I mean, so many different merits, so many different people, and that's the good thing about IDF, is you're exposed to this diversity. So you're getting familiar, you're getting knowledge, you're picking the brains of people that have been through it, you're picking the brains of people that are going through the same stuff that you are. But also, when I'm at college, just I'm trying to think. Oh, going out with in these times you probably could not, but having friends over, not big amounts, just a couple of friends over, maybe a friend, and just maybe going out, or having them bring something over, bring food over, and just talking. I feel like talking is like the best way for me to alleviate stress. I'm a part of a radio station, so a lot of the times I'm busy with that, and I'm very involved with the radio station on campus. So I think one of the bigger ways for me to alleviate stress is vamp up my involvement with them. Look for I know that sounds like, well, are you adding more stress to your plate? No, really, it's like my safe haven. It's peaceful for me to go to the radio station, and it's just what I like to do. Being a part of podcast and talking, and that really alleviates stress, especially when I'm talking about sports. Watching sports, maybe watching your favorite television show. I know that these are trying times, and it's a little difficult to be able to go out and be able to hang out with friends, so it might be a little bit more difficult, I'm not going to lie. But I mean, like, even as simple as we're fortunate enough at our school, we have like yoga seminars. I don't know how they're going to do it this year, but I mean, doing yoga, maybe some simple breathing techniques, simple breathing exercises. Uh, for me, though, at its core, I think the best way to alleviate stress is just talking out and speaking my mind to other people that have been going through the same things, or just finding my hobby, I guess, finding my niche, and it takes my mind off of everything that's going on.
Well, Keegan, that is sage advice indeed, and I don't think that we could have actually asked for anything more. So I think that's a great place for us to end for right now. So, Keegan, thank you so much for your insight, your time, your sticking with my curveballs, and I just really appreciate your being so real with us and talking about things that not everyone is always willing to talk about. So, Keegan, thank you once again, and to all of you who are listening, we hope that our little chat here has offered our teen listeners and maybe their parents some thoughts about being independent and managing life with a primary immunodeficiency. We really appreciate your being with us. And Keegan, really appreciate your taking the time out of your day to talk with us. It really has been a pleasure.
Yeah. Not Thank you for having me. I appreciated this. This is like I said during the break, getting the rust off, trying to be able to answer some of these questions like I did when I was with counsel. So this is much needed.
Well, Keegan, thank you. And thank you again to our listeners for being with us here today. We hope that you'll join us for the entire series as we talk about the concerns of being a teen living with primary immunodeficiency. Until then, all of us here at IDF want to wish you good health and strength. And of course, remember, you are never alone. There's always people out here who want to help. We all just have to find each other.
This podcast is a service of the Immune Deficiency Foundation. If you like our show and want to learn more, please subscribe to this podcast so future episodes will be sent to your device automatically. And leave us a review on iTunes so others will discover this podcast. Special thanks to the sponsors of IDF Youth Week, Takeda, CSL Behring, Grifols, and Horizon Therapeutics. Their support allows IDF to offer programming like this episode and more. To learn more about primary immunodeficiency and the PI community, please visit the IDF website at www.primaryimmune.org. And if you have a question you would like answered, email us at info@primaryimmune.org. Thanks for tuning in.